Right, another defeat for Celtic last night. It finished 4-2 away to AC Milan. If anyone's counting, which probably most of you are, that's 2 wins in our last 11 games now. We've shipped, I think, 17 goals in 5 Europa League matches. The numbers don't look particularly good, and last night hasn't helped that at all. However, as I said on last night's post-match reaction with David Walton, which you can see up there, I thought there were certain positives in the way Celtic played. I thought Odsonne Edouard looked just a class act, and I'm really sad that next Thursday is probably going to be his final ever European game for the club. I think that's a real shame. I thought Jeremy Frimpong had a good game. He was lively anyway, even if his end product wasn't great. And I thought Nir Bitton as well had a relatively good game, which seems daft to say when you've shipped 4 more goals, but I thought he had a few really good challenges at points in the game. However, saying all that, as I say, the numbers still aren't great. The future still doesn't look particularly good for this team under Neil Lennon, but I'm kind of beyond the stage of being on this channel raging every single video. I'm kind of at the acceptance stage now with regards to Neil Lennon and where Celtic are going at the moment, and I think we all kind of realise that Neil Lennon is going to be here for a bit longer. He is still, for me, on the edge. And I don't think, for example, he can afford to drop points this Sunday. I think at that stage he would be sacked, although nothing's a given with the Celtic board and their loyalty to Lennon. But I think that Neil Lennon will be here until the cup final. I think he'll probably be in charge when we go to Ibrox as well. After that, I'm not sure. But, for the next few weeks, the next half a dozen games or so, I think Neil Lennon's going to be our manager. I think we have to come to terms with that. And to be honest, I have. And the thing we have to do now is, as much as we're unhappy about it, my own opinion is that we just have to hope for the best, really. We just have to hope that Neil Lennon can turn this Celtic team around. I think there were some positive signs in the game against AC Milan, but the defence is obviously still the big issue. We've shipped 4 more goals, and the goalkeeper's an issue, the centre-backs are an issue, the full-backs' positioning is an issue. It just doesn't look great. But I'm putting on a brave face at the moment. However, there is one thing that is still irritating me about Celtic, and I'll tell you about it in a wee second. Right, I've seen a lot of Celtic fans online complaining it being gaslit or gaslighted. I'm not sure what the right one is. Effectively, the club gaslighting them. Now, it's a term that I'd heard in a few fleeting occasions prior to the last couple of weeks, but it's one that's popping up more and more and more when you see the output from the club in social media, Neil Lennon at press conferences, even players after the match last night that I'll come on to. It's a growing term. So what is gaslighting? Well, luckily for you, I've looked it up. We've gone to Wikipedia, trusty old Wikipedia, and they define gaslighting as a form of psychological manipulation in which a person deliberately sows seeds of doubt in a person or group's mindset, making them question their own judgment. I assume then that it's quite similar to propaganda, maybe not quite literally, but in terms of an organisation, Celtic in this case, putting out information with the aim of, and I'll use a really, really strong term here, brainwashing the support into thinking that everything is all right. Celtic have been really guilty of this in recent weeks, putting out the message on social media and during press conferences that things are okay. We're not getting complacent, said Peter Law. Neil Lennon's constantly said about the positives in games, and I've not got a problem with that in general. But when it's so obviously incorrect and trying to almost mislead supporters into easing off in their criticism of the club, then that's where it gets wrong. That infamous statement that Celtic sent out just under a week ago now after the trouble after the game against Ross County last Sunday, which was, in my opinion, an absolutely disgraceful statement. I touched on that the other day in one of the solo videos, so I won't go back into all of it again. What I will point out again is that in that statement, Celtic referred to the 11 consecutive domestic trophies it would won, almost playing up to this theory that some Celtic fans are entitled for wanting their team to continue winning things and not just meekly surrender all their dominance to our rivals across the city. So that is gaslighting straight away. They're almost saying that the fact we've won 11 domestic trophies in a row and the fact we've won 9 titles in a row means that there is absolutely nothing wrong with what's happened already this season. There's nothing wrong with crashing out to Ferencváros in the Champions League qualifying. There's nothing wrong with finishing bottom of our Europa League group, having been the top seeds. There's nothing wrong with being 11 points behind Rangers at the moment. There's nothing wrong with crashing out of the Betfred Cup to Ross County at home 2-0. There's nothing wrong with that because we've won all these trophies in the past. I look on the Celtic Twitter feed from last night after the game against Milan. If you didn't know the score, you would have assumed that we got a famous result in the San Siro because the Twitter feed is constantly putting out this propaganda of the team performing well, loads and loads of positives. Now, I know that they wouldn't directly, talk about the negatives. Football clubs don't tend to do that, but don't try and mislead the supporters. Neil Lennon referred to the performance last night as breathtaking. Breathtaking. We lost 4-2. We went 2-0 up at the San Siro. At that point, it was pretty breathtaking. But we lost 4-2. We've lost, X amount of our last 11 games. We've only won 2 of them. Don't come out and tell me after a 4-2 defeat that we were breathtaking. Don't come out and tell me after a 2-0 defeat to Ross County that it wasn't actually that bad. That's just an absolutely ludicrous comment. And yes, Neil Lennon did genuinely say that there wasn't a hell of a lot wrong with the performance in the defeat to Ross County. Just the mind honestly boggles. But Neil Lennon hasn't just been doing this recently in a real state of turmoil. If you go back to late September when we defeated Hibs 3-0, now admittedly probably one of our best performances, if not the best performance of the season so far. Admittedly, it's not up against much. But Neil Lennon came out after that 3-0 win at home to Hibernian and said it was one of the best performances in his time as manager of the club. Right, it's a decent win. You've beaten Hibs 3-0, but are you honestly going to compare it to winning in Rome last year, winning in Moscow, beating Rangers 3-0 at home twice, beating Barcelona at Celtic Park? Are you serious, Neil Lennon? I mean, that's just an absolutely ludicrous comment to make. It's almost as if when there's no fans allowed into games, Neil Lennon thinks that we're just all cavemen and we're not getting to see the matches at all, and he can tell us what happened and we'll just lap it up and believe him. Neil Beaton was asked at it as well after the game against Milan, and I'm not just singling Neil Lennon out for this because our Israeli centre-back reckons that the Celtic players don't deserve the criticism that they're currently getting. Near, we have won 2 out of our last 11 games. We are 11 points behind in the league. We're out of every other competition already. We were the top seeds in the Europa League and we lost 4-1 twice to Sparta Prague. Don't come out and tell me that the criticism is unfair because you're just insulting every Celtic fan's intelligence, and you're actually insulting your own intelligence by even believing that we're going to believe what you're saying. The players genuinely seem to think that this criticism is harsh. Every time you hear or see a player doing an interview or read their quotes, they're chatting about how they can turn this around and how, as Beaton said last night, the criticism is harsh and things aren't quite as bad as they seem or are as they're being portrayed. And it's no doubt to me that Neil Lennon is telling them inside that dressing room, the media are doing this, the media are doing that, they're talking it out, and he's probably even used his own fans there on Sunday as motivation for telling the players that everything isn't as bad as it seems. Now, I'm all for the manager creating a siege mentality at the club, but when he's mixing that in with saying there needs to be a huge culture change among the players, and after the Ferencváros defeat saying that none of the players even want to be there, then I kind of feel like that whole thing's redundant. It's the same thing when he's talking up performances like last night. Again, I can understand them putting a positive spin in things, trying to keep the confidence of the players up. But see again, when you're, mixing that in with just real crazy moments from Neil Lennon post-match when he says there needs to be a culture change and he says that players don't want to be there, you just lose that whole effect for me. So near Beaton, Neil Lennon, Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond, who was kind of quoted in the Daily Record, where one of his sources was quoted as saying that Celtic fans are basically entitled, which is probably the most ridiculous thing that's come out from the club in the last couple of weeks, and it has a fair bit of competition. All these people are telling us things aren't as bad as they seem, and we're the ones that are getting all het up for no reason. And that, for me, is the very definition of gaslighting as I understand it. But you know what? These guys in many ways are entitled to have those own viewpoints. But I'll give you two final things to finish this video. The first one is across the city, Rangers, who were so bad for this over the last couple of years, going out in the press, saying they're going to do this and not delivering it. Remember their fans cheering the cup draw in the Scottish Cup. A few weeks later, we beat them 4-0 at Hampden. Brendan Rodgers has the final laugh. Now, Rangers have learned their lesson from those games and last season when Steven Gerrard thought he'd won the league at Celtic Park in December. They are keeping everything quiet this year. They are doing their talking on the pitch. I can't stand them, but you have to applaud them for that. We, on the other hand, are doing the opposite of what we've done over the last 10 years, and we are doing our talking now in the media. We're telling everyone everything is all right, and then we're going onto the pitch and failing to perform, and it's not good enough. That's point one. Point two is, do not come out and tell me this is just a bad run of form. This is just a blip. Celtic. The Rangers game, the first defeat of this horror run, was 7 weeks ago now. In that time, we have won 2 matches. This is a horrendous part of our season. It's no longer just a wee blip. So don't try and kid on the Celtic support into thinking that everything's going to be all right over the next few weeks, because it's not going to be, sadly. But hey ho, that's where we're at the moment. I appreciate you watching this video. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you've not done it yet. Click the like button, tell a pal, comment, do whatever you want to do. We're back tomorrow where I'll be joined by an Olympian. How about that, eh? More to follow tomorrow, guys. Take care and hail, hail.